At this point, most of us are familiar with the term Marvel Cinematic Universe, or MCU. It refers to the multiple films produced by Marvel Studios that tell one big interwoven story. But as that story continues, it's becoming clear that we could also call this the Robert Downey Jr. Cinematic Universe. How did that happen, and what does it mean going forward? Let's discuss. Now, interestingly, when it came to making the very first movie from Marvel Studios, the Big Bang of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, casting Robert Downey Jr. was considered a bit of a gamble. He was 43 at the time, older than the usual actor asked to anchor a new franchise, and hadn't started a box office hit since, well, Back to School in 1986. But ultimately, director Jon Favreau felt Downey's real-life struggle with substance abuse made him the best choice to not only make a difficult character like Tony Stark likable, but portray him with some actual emotional depth. Favreau went to bat for Downey, and Kevin Feige agreed in what would be Marvel's first gamble of many. To pay off, yes, Iron Man was a huge hit, and after similar outside-of-the-box casting with Edward Norton as Bruce Banner failed to yield the same results, Marvel's only success through 2010 when Iron Man 2 hit theaters. That film was also a box office success, although not as well received by fans. Still, it far outperformed the debut of two new members to the MCU, Thor and Captain America, both in 2011. By the time Joss Whedon's The Avengers hit theaters, Downey had become an invaluable part of the MCU, and the ensemble film leaned on him heavily. In some ways, it was another Iron Man film. And Downey's luck also continued as Whedon decided to pair up his Stark with the other scientist on the team, the new Bruce Banner, played by Mark Ruffalo. Ruffalo was tremendously well received in the role, as was his relationship with Stark. The internet went nuts for the science bros. And finally, shippers had an alternative to all the Loki-Thor fantasies out there. Hey, the fan hearts want what the fan hearts want. Then, further proving that Downey is the spine of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Iron Man 3, with Favreau replaced by Downey pal Shane Black at Downey's request, hit theaters and closely mirrored the astounding success of the Avengers. And this is where things started to really take a turn in Downey's favor, by his design. Despite its financial success, Iron Man 3 again rubbed fans the wrong way, even more so than Iron Man 2. And Downey's contract with Marvel had run out. While promoting Iron Man 3, Downey was very vocal that this might be the end of his run, causing the industry and fans alike to wonder what the MCU would look like without him. But Marvel didn't want to wonder, so they cut a deal with Downey for an undisclosed sum. Not for more Iron Man movies, though, as Downey made it clear he was in the Avengers business. He could see that team movies were the future, especially for Marvel. And speaking of team movies, Downey saw to it that he would be at the heart of the most hotly anticipated Marvel movie on the horizon, Avengers 2: Age of Ultron. Fans couldn't believe it when it seemed that in the movies it would be Downey Stark and not Hank Pym who creates Ultron, as Pym does so famously in the comics. And there was some fear that Mandarin-level tinkering was going on, and perhaps it is, as the recently released synopsis for the Avengers: Age of Ultron seems to indicate the following workaround. Pym still creates the Ultron technology, but Stark is the one who evolves it, accidentally creating Ultron and having to deal with the consequences and guilt. Quite the storyline and character arc Downey has snagged for himself there, as comic book fans can confirm, having watched Pym go through it on the page. And there's more! Beware, though, this is a potential spoiler. Okay. Rumor has it that Avengers: Age of Ultron will end in Marvel Civil War, with Iron Man and Captain America leading opposing teams. A rumor which has only been strengthened by the leak that Downey is finalizing a deal to appear in Captain America 3, where he was only supposed to have a small role, yet lobbied to co-star and won. And just like that, Downey has found a way to not only co-opt the success of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but now there will be an overlying narrative that refers to him throughout all the MCU movies in Phase 3, which would see the Civil War play out and then lead into Avengers 3 and Thanos, the big bad who brings them all back together. For more on this, be sure to check out my video all about a potential MCU Civil War. The link is in the video description. Then, don't forget Tony Stark's father, Howard, introduced in both Captain America: The First Avenger and Iron Man 2. He's also becoming a thread woven throughout the MCU, which of course even further ties those different storylines and elements to Tony. Howard Stark will be a character on TV series Agent Carter, as well as in the upcoming film Ant-Man, where he presumably crosses paths with Hank Pym. Does that mean Papa Stark helped create the Ultron technology? By the way, a flesh and blood Jarvis will also show up in Agent Carter, causing audiences watching the show to think of Tony and how Jarvis eventually ended up as his AI. Then there's Guardians of the Galaxy, which at first glance might seem like a threat to Downey's domination. But if you can't beat him, join him, which might be exactly what Downey is also planning. He's publicly stated that Guardians of the Galaxy is the best Marvel movie to date, but don't forget that in the recent relaunch of the Guardians of the Galaxy comic, Tony Stark joined the team. Beyond the films we know Marvel has planned, we also shouldn't be surprised if Tony Stark shows up in any standalone Hulk films, thanks to that Science Bros connection. And at this point, maybe Stephen Strange will start out as Stark's doctor. With all storylines leading to Tony, what will happen when Downey finally says peace out for real? Will he ever say peace out for real? And should Marvel recast if he does, or focus on a new character or characters? Does the MCU need a focal point? And is Feige servicing the story with these changes or an actor's demands? And is Downey's involvement in Captain America 3 a step too far? Finally, what does the popularity of Guardians of the Galaxy do to this equation? Will Marvel's cosmic cinematic universe remain largely separate, or should it be folded into our Earthbound storylines? And if so, do you want to see Downey join that team? Be sure to write your thoughts down below. I'm Grace Randolph, and this has been a Movie Bite. You can watch more